This ancient fortress was the site of one of the most insane fires in history, and at the center of it was a queen who chose to be buried alive in fire instead of surrendering to a tyrant. This is the absolutely crazy, heroic, and horrific story of Rani Padmini, a tale of beauty, an epic battle, and a final sacrifice so extreme it's almost impossible to believe. But how much of this insane legend is actually real? To figure that out, we have to go back in time, not just to a brutal siege in the 14th century, but into the mind of a poet who wrote her story 200 years later. This is a story where fact and myth are so tangled up, just trying to separate them is an epic challenge. This story kicks off in two different timelines, which is what makes it so wild. First, you have the real history from 1303. This guy, Sultan Alauddin Kilji, was an ambitious and totally ruthless conqueror who decided he wanted to take over the massive Chittor Fort. The siege he launched was 100% real. It was insane, and we have the documents to prove it. Khilji wanted to control major trade routes, so taking this fort was a huge strategic goal. For 8 straight months, his armies just hammered the fort, which is a crazy testament to the Rajput warriors inside. But the reason for the siege, the part of the story everyone remembers, comes from our second timeline. Over 200 years later, in 1540, a poet named Malik Muhammad Jayasi wrote an epic poem called Padmavat. This is super important. Almost everything we know about Rani Padmini comes from this poem. Most historians today believe Padmavat is an amazing work of fiction, not a history book. In fact, we have zero proof from 1303, no records, no chronicles, that a queen named Padmini even existed. The poet himself basically said the story was a giant metaphor. Chittor was the body, the king was the mind, and the beautiful queen, Padmini, was divine wisdom. The invading Sultan Kilji? He was just a symbol for worldly temptation. This incredible poem created the legend we know today, a legend so powerful that for centuries, people thought it was pure fact. So as we get into this, we're balancing Jayasi's epic poetry with the hard, cold facts of history. According to the poem, this all starts on a paradise island, probably modern-day Sri Lanka. This is where a princess named Padmavati lived, and she was supposedly so beautiful that it was literally otherworldly. The poet called her the perfect woman, and her looks are what drives this entire insane story forward. And get this, the princess had a talking parrot named Hiraman, who was her best friend. But her dad, the king, got weirded out by their friendship and ordered the parrot to be executed. So the parrot makes a run for it and, after some crazy adventures, gets sold to a guy who takes him all the way to Chittor. There, the local king, Ratan Sen, buys this amazing bird. And in the king's court, the parrot starts telling him all about the unbelievable beauty of Princess Padmavati. He describes her so perfectly that King Ratan Sen falls completely in love with a woman he's never even seen. This is where the quest begins. A king becomes so obsessed with the idea of this woman that he decides to abandon his entire kingdom and cross 7 seas just to find her. Fueled by the parrot's stories, King Ratan Sen did something that sounds absolutely crazy. He left his throne and his kingdom, risking it all just for a chance to meet this woman from his imagination. With the parrot as his guide, he and thousands of his followers went on this insane quest across the 7 seas to find her. When he finally got to her island, he didn't just roll up to the palace. Like a true hero, he became a religious ascetic in a temple, going through crazy hardships to prove he was worthy. He lived like this for months, hiding his identity, all to win Padmavati's hand. Eventually, people started talking about this mysterious holy man, and Padmavati went to the temple to see what was going on. The second they met, the connection was electric. Ratan Sen had found the woman from the parrot stories, and she had found a man whose devotion was as legendary as her beauty. Her father gave his blessing, and they had a massive wedding. Ratan Sen then brought his new queen all the way back to Chittor, the giant fortress that would become her home, and later, the site of her legendary sacrifice. For a little while, everything was perfect, but a new, darker chapter was about to begin, all because of a betrayal from inside the king's own court. The perfect life of Ratan Sen and Padmini was about to be completely destroyed. The guy who ruined everything, according to the legend, was a court musician named Raghav Chetan. The king banished him for practicing dark magic, so this guy decided to get the ultimate revenge, and he knew exactly how to destroy the king by telling the world about the queen's unbelievable beauty. He traveled all the way to Delhi, to the court of the most powerful man around, Sultan Alauddin Kilji. Now, the real Khilji was a legit military genius with a ruthless hunger for more power. Raghav Chetan knew this and told him all about Rani Padmini's beauty, lighting a dangerous fire in the Sultan's mind. And this is where the legend completely breaks from reality. Khilji's invasion of Chittor in 1303 is a historical fact, but his reasons were almost definitely strategic. Chittor was a monster fort controlling valuable trade routes. Taking it was a no-brainer military move. The people who were actually there at the time, like Khilji's own court poet, never even mentioned Padmini. The story of Khilji's obsession was an epic plot device invented by the poet to make the war personal and tragic. But in the legend, Khilji's military goals were now fueled by an all-consuming obsession to possess Rani Padmini. He gathered his massive army and marched on Chittor, not for a stone fortress, but for the woman who was said to be its living jewel. In 1303, the giant army of the Delhi Sultanate showed up at Chittor, kicking off one of the most famous sieges in Indian history. For months, the Rajput warriors held them off in an incredible show of defiance. But inside the fort, food and supplies were getting dangerously low. It's at this point that the legend gives us its most famous scene. The story goes that a frustrated Sultan Kilji sent a message to King Ratan Sen. "Just let me see the queen whose beauty started this war, and I will spare Chittor." This was a completely dishonorable request for a Rajput king, but to save his people, Ratan Sen agreed to a crazy compromise. Kilji could see Padmini's reflection. This mirror episode is the core of the Padmini legend, but again, it was created for the poem. It's not history. In the story, Kilji was brought into the palace where he saw Padmini's reflection in a series of mirrors. He never saw her face to face. But that one glimpse was all it took. The legend says her reflection turned his obsession into a raging inferno. Pretending to be thankful, Kilji asked the king to walk him to the gate as a courtesy. But it was a trap. The second king, Ratan Sen, was outside his own fort. Kilji's soldiers jumped him and took him hostage. The new ultimatum for Chittor was brutal. Surrender Rani Padmini, or your king is dead. With their king captured, Chittor was in crisis. It seemed like the queen had only two horrible options: give herself up to save her husband, or refuse and let him be killed. But according to the legend, Rani Padmini came up with the most big-brain plan ever. She sent a message to Kilji, agreeing to surrender. But she said, as a queen, she had to arrive with her full escort of hundreds of handmaidens, all traveling in traditional covered carriages called palanquins. Kilji, thinking he had won, totally fell for it. On the day of the surrender, a massive procession of over 100 palanquins, left Chittor and headed for the Sultan's camp. But what Kilji didn't know is that inside these carriages weren't handmaidens. They were filled with Chittor's most elite soldiers, fully armed and ready to fight. Even the guys carrying the palanquins were soldiers in disguise. Once the procession was deep inside the enemy camp, they gave the signal. The warriors burst out, swords drawn, and unleashed total chaos on the shocked Delhi forces. In the madness, a special team fought their way to the tent where Ratan Sen was being held, freed him, and got him back to the fort. This rescue is one of the most thrilling parts of the legend. It's considered folklore, not fact, but it shows off Rajput bravery and Padmini's incredible intelligence. The rescue worked, but it made Alauddin Kilji furious. His obsession had turned into pure rage, and he ordered an all-out final assault on Chittor. Before Kilji could launch his final attack, the legend takes another tragic turn. The king of a nearby fort also wanted Padmini and challenged Ratan Sen to a duel. In the fight, both kings were killed. So when Kilji began his final brutal assault, Chittor was now kingless. The Rajput warriors fought with insane courage, but were completely outnumbered. The walls were breached. They were going to lose. For the people inside, getting captured meant slavery and total dishonor. This is where the Rajputs turned to a terrifying tradition. For the men, it was called Saka. They would put on saffron robes and charge into battle to fight to the very last man. For the women, it meant committing Jauhar, a mass self-immolation to protect their honor and deny the conqueror his prize. This wasn't about giving up. It was the ultimate act of defiance. According to the legend, Rani Padmini led this final horrific ritual. As the final battle raged outside, a massive bonfire was lit inside the fortress. Dressed in their wedding clothes, the women of Chittor, with their queen leading them, walked in a procession toward the fire. Chanting prayers, Padmini was the first to step into the flames, becoming a symbol of honor that no one could touch. Hundreds, maybe even thousands of women followed her, choosing fire over being captured. When Alauddin Kilji and his army finally broke through, they didn't find the treasure they were expecting. They found a silent fortress of ghosts, filled with the ashes of the people they wanted to conquer. Kilji had won the fort, but he had been completely and utterly defeated. Alauddin Kilji had conquered Chittor, but it was a completely empty victory. He was the king of a graveyard. The prize he supposedly started a war for, Rani Padmini, was gone forever, her spirit unconquered. In a rage, historical sources say Kilji ordered a massacre of thousands of people still left in the city. He put his son in charge of the broken fort and went back to Delhi. But the story of Chittor was just getting started. So, did Rani Padmini actually exist? Historians still debate it, but the power of her legend is undeniable. The poem turned her into a massive symbol of Rajput honor, courage, and resistance. She became more than a queen. She became an icon, almost a goddess, whose sacrifice is still honored today. The story of Padmini has been told and retold in countless ways because it taps into timeless ideas. The clash between power and spirit, the insane price of honor, and the idea that you can win a moral victory even in total defeat. The legend is a powerful reminder that history isn't just about what happened, but also about the stories we tell. Whether she was a real queen or a poet's invention, Padmini lives on as an icon of courage. Her fire wasn't just for destruction. It lit a beacon of defiance that has never gone out. The story of Rani Padmini is as inspiring as it is tragic, and it really makes you think about what honor and sacrifice actually mean. So what do you think? What part of her legend is the most insane to you? Her intelligence? Her courage? Her final act of defiance? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. From a real siege in 1303, to a 16th century epic poem. The story of Rani Padmini has traveled through time, blending history and myth into one of India's most legendary tales. It shows how one story can literally shape the memory of an entire culture. Historians can point out that there's no hard proof she existed, but the legend of the queen, who chose fire over dishonor, is still insanely powerful. The flames of Chittor died out 700 years ago, but the light from Padmini's legendary pyre continues to burn brightly. Her story, whether it's fact or fiction, is a testament to the idea that some things, like freedom and dignity, are worth more than life itself. If this story moved you even half as much as it moved us, don't forget to like the video. It really helps us keep bringing forgotten legends like this back to life. If you want more stories where history and myth collide, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next tale from the past. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.